You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo or honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're a real heat seeker out there, you can try spicy ghost pepper only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. Listen, I'm going to dare you to do it. I dare you. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs that you already love. Pick a flavor. Grab some extra napkins and then grab a few more napkins and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's.
What's up, Cal fans? We are back with a very special episode of the California Golden Bear Cast. The Golden Tweets! And of course, as is tradition, as long as he is delivering on our expectations, we have our dear friend Rob ready to go to let us know if we have mail.
You've got mail.
That was the best one yet.
That was the best one yet? Okay. I'll take it.
Have you been practicing?
I don't know, but I can only tell you that my anxiety is starting to rise every record. Every time we record. My anxiety levels, damn it. God, I hope I have that voice today.
We need to save that. That one was... somebody, can you tweet us the original You've Got Mail clip and compare it with that clip? I'm sure there's some sort of AI that can measure the accuracy there. 99% accuracy is my guess.
Damn.
Nonetheless,
It's putting me on a high pedestal.
we have 14 questions today.
Yep.
14.
14.
Rapid fire, maybe because we say that every time and it's not always rapid fire.
Nope, it's never.
But Rob, take it away.
Let's get to it. All right. First, from our dear friend Terrence, who you got tweets of. Terrence, our dear friend Terrence. Yeah. Terrence sends us a question. Would we have done better just keeping the starting O-line from Auburn SDSU?
Oh my god.
Even if the starters are better, they haven't been getting live snaps, and communication, knowing where the guy next to you is as important as actual talent.
All right. First of all, hi, Terrence. Hope all is well. Second, I mean, my answer to this, Rob, when you brought it up on the previous podcast, is that I didn't say then, is if you want me to give a black and white answer, which the segment is all about, so I'm going to do so, you play the better player. I mean, to me, it's like, I'm trying to equate it again. The example I used was Herbert gets hurt. He goes out. Your backup comes in for 2 games and looks good enough to get you the wins. But who comes back in? It's Herbert, right? Like, there's no question about it. Your starter is the starter. You play the starters as long as they look good in practice. But I think it is as simple as that. In that you have those two data points. They look good in practice. Practice looks strong. And hey, this is our one. I go with our one. It's the same thing if Jaden's hurt. Jaden's hurt, but guess who looks great? Jet ran for 160 yards when Jaden was out. Okay, Jaden's back. He's practicing. Do you start Jet? Do you start Jaden? You start Jaden. I just don't think it's different with the O-line because of course, it has to gel as unit. But maybe you could say the same thing about the secondary. If Noel Williams gets hurt, and Lumagia is in there playing well, and Noel comes back, do you play Noel or do you play Lumagia? I think you play Noel.
True.
You go back to the one. As long as they look, it'd be different if they looked super rusty in practice.
Yeah.
To me, if you have to have a black and white answer here, I think it's as simple as saying you go with the one.
I think you're right. But I think you go with the one. It's just unfortunate that the communication,
agreed,
and them not getting snaps was evident in this game.
And it's a good question, and it's great. What if?
Mm-hmm. All right, next one we got Bears in 4 tweets us, do you think Blesh coaching both offensive line and being the offense coordinator is part of the problem for the offense? Is he doing both too much? The biggest issues I've seen with the offense are the play calling and offensive line play. I think you're going to have a better answer for this because you've been with the team and so on. Been with the team. My
I will
take
not.
here is
I
think
guarantee
do.
you I will not.
My thing is this: all offensive coordinators coach a position. There's no offensive coordinator that does not coach a position
In college.
So I think that's part of the job. Like no one's saying, oh, like, you know, is Spav doing too much by coaching the quarterbacks and, you know, the offense? No, like, you know, no one's saying that about Joe Brady when he was with LSU and leading that team to, you know, the national championship game. So I don't think so. It's not I don't think that's an issue at all. And if it was his first time doing so, I'd say, yeah, maybe he's a bit overwhelmed with all the duties he has to do. But he's been an offensive coordinator and an offensive line coach. He's also been an offensive coordinator and a quarterbacks coach. He's done it before. So I don't think that's he's doing too much.
I agree. The reason this has been a hot topic in the threads, in the comment section of Right for California, very hot topic. And I think this is a fan topic. This is not a coach or football program topic. Nobody's talking about this. Like, it's just a fan topic. It's fun. Y'all are welcome to talk about it, but it's not. I think you said it super well.
No. Now it's different if it's like the head coach calling plays and yet you have an offensive coordinator. That's a whole different conversation. But yes.
You know where this evolves into, right?
What does this evolve into?
I don't even know if I want to say it out loud because I guarantee you, but I'm sure the conversation's already out there. Should Blesh be in the booth?
Yeah.
Right? I just lived it with the Wilkes stuff of last season with the Niners.
Yeah.
Where it was, should Wilkes be on the sideline? Should Wilkes be in the booth? Should Blesh be, I really think it's a fan thing. And even so much, just seeing it with the Niners and going through with the Niners, it's just such an easy example. Yeah. I mean, I guess the same way, it's the perfect example of this was when our starter was Kevin Riley and everybody wanted to get Alan Bridgeford. And I would tell everybody that would listen to me that I'm at the practices and you don't want to see Bridgeford. And I'm sure he's doing great in his life, but you know, he wasn't ready yet. He just wasn't ready yet. And it's the things that you can see inside of the building versus you can pontificate outside of the building.
I always love listening to that story. All right. Nick. Wow. The editor-in-chief of Right for California sends us a question, who has his own premium podcast too. But he sends us, still furious about punting on 4th and 3 from the FSU 40 in the first quarter.
The second that happened, I could see it being written in the Monday article. I was like, oh man, coaching game theory is just, Nick is not going to be a fan of this one.
It says, please discuss as you wish.
So we talked about it a little bit. The one saving grace here is I think the comms going out in the helmet.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing that I justified it with. But again, I think the conservative mentality seeped out in this game, whether it was intentional or not, it was there. But this was specifically where I thought that Wilcox, with the helmet stuff, having to take the time out, knowing that DJU couldn't have the helmet comms, pinning them back at the 2 or 3 yard line, we just didn't execute. And I think it doesn't become a terrible decision until you kick that ball into the end zone. And it was the field position gained for us there was terrible. And then it just became an awful decision. Like once we failed to execute on that play, it really just wasn't good. What's amazing to me is how many gunners on special teams buy the fake of the receiver that goes
looking up
20 yards. But that's the thing, is when you're running and you're looking ahead and that's your goal. You got to get the guy that's getting the ball. Can't guarantee, you can't count on it being a fair catch. So if he's moving up at the 20 and the ball's at the 4, you don't know, because that's it is hard. But I think teams have gotten so much better at that. I've seen so many more teams and gunners faked out by these throwing the arms up and all of this. But overall, I think no matter which way you looked at that, it wasn't the right decision. I justified it because I felt like the game situation made some sense to do that.
Yep.
And then once we failed to execute it, I sort of admonished myself, was like, not only was that stupid of me to justify it, but also Nick would be upset with me for justifying that. And here we are.
There you have it, Nick. You got your answer. Next one's from California Hood Bear. How do we grade the coaching this far? Would we see more productivity having a dedicated and experienced special teams and or offensive line coach versus having 2 on the secondary?
What do you think about special teams?
I think special teams is eons better than it was last year and the year before. I think punt return, we actually can do stuff. I think kick returns, we can actually do stuff. I think the coverage has been better. I think Lachlan Wilson is having one of the greatest punter years I've seen since probably Cole Leiniger, I would say.
Good pull.
So yeah, I think special teams has become insanely good. I know, like, one of the special teams analysts that we have and like helpers is Ryan Longwell, right? Who's like former NFL kicker. He's helping with the guys. So I think that's kind of where we're at, is the team's gotten significantly better. I just think having that point of relativity of like looking back at where our special teams was and where we are. Of course, we want it to be better, right? But where we were and where we are, it's a vast improvement.
My absolute favorite is that you said that it's gotten eons better.
Yeah.
And we went from from not doing good things to doing good, or like not being able to do things, to being able to do things. I was like, wow, that's been really rough.
It's been rough. It's been rough. Would we have more productivity having a dedicated, experienced special teams and or offensive line coach versus having 2? I don't know. You know what? It's one of those things where, like, I'm not in the room, so I can't attest to that. But like, I'll pose a question to you, Hood Bear, about this. And Andy, if you want to speak to this, you're more than welcome to. What if the reason that our secondary is this good is because we have 2 coaches coaching the secondary? Would you be willing to give up how our secondary plays, like, and the coaching that the secondary gets, to have an incremental increase in special teams and offensive line play? That's the question I would pose.
No,
that's
I wouldn't. No, man, because I literally watched 49ers football, and the secondary is terrible. Like,
your special teams also, you
can't. I rolled my eyes for those that can't see it on the podcast. You can't. No, I would not. We're fine. I think everything is as it should be, and I'd rather have an incredible secondary that's giving you second chances, and just have, again, I think they even said it on the broadcast, the best special teams unit is one that never gets mentioned.
Yeah. It's true.
Just neutral. Our goal is neutral. Rob's saying we're positive. The goal is neutral. Let's take that to the bank and keep everything else as is.
Yeah. All right, next one's from Tyler. Tyler says, procedural penalties are unacceptable at this point, in my opinion. Really ugly stuff there.
It's week 4.
Mm-hmm.
If it's happening in week 8, unacceptable is an okay response. It's week 4.
Yeah.
And it's our first in-conference game. We just got to remember the perspective here.
With our first team offensive line for the very first time.
At Florida State in a sold-out stadium across the country. There has to be... This is college. It's not the NFL. These things happen. That the beauty of college football is that it's an imperfect game. That's why it's so much fun to watch. It's the NFL, to me, sometimes can be boring because you end up with such perfection that it doesn't create the fun. The fun of college football are the plays that don't make any sense. Those hero plays that Rob was talking about earlier. Where you're like, What team gives up a first down on 4th and 13 or lets a quarterback scramble who's not even that fast with 4 defenders around? I mean, there's these plays that shouldn't happen but do, and that's the imperfection of college football. It makes it so endearing and so much more fun.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
I think that you take these with everything else that kind of comes with the territory.
I mean, just case in point for that, like, do you see that interception this week where it was like, I can't remember what game it's from, but it's like it tips off the wide receiver's hands, then goes down, and then it hits someone's foot, pops back up, and then the DB has the interception. Just plays like that. It looks like a video game play. It just happens in college football. It does not happen in the NFL.
It does not.
Does not. All right, next one from Juan Cho. What is the point of the Wilcox era? Is he this is actually a good question. Is he a caretaker coach who we couldn't fire because of interest rates on the stadium loan are too high, and we didn't know what conference we'd be hibernating in? We have no offense. We have no offense ever. Started off as a good question, and then it became something different. I thought there was going to be like a comparison there. Like, is he a caretaker coach or is he a thing? But there wasn't.
I think that Wilcox will go down for whatever tenure it ends up being. But if we expect this program to have the level of success that everybody seems to want it to have, he'll probably get another offer and eventually take it. And I think we will look back on it and say that we were a competitive football team year in and year out. We always had the opportunity to look a little bit beyond where we thought we might end up. And that the players and the program and ultimately the people behind it were all better for it, for having them here. The offense, we haven't had an offense ever. We had so much offense. Our cup overfloweth with offense in the Sonny Dykes era. And I think it was us that said this transition to having some defense might actually be nice. I love watching our team play defense and going into those away games where you go into these high scoring offenses and all of the fans in those stadiums think we're just going to drop 80 points on Cal and move on. And then it's 7-7 at the half. And you look at the faces that they have on, and it's disbelief. I have really cherished those moments. And would I like the offense to score 35, 40 points a game or drop 40, drop 50, and some of the things that we were starting to build upon last season? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do I think that it's a lost cause this season? I do not. The best is yet to come. And it might take a little bit to get there. But I don't think that I'm going to sit back and judge this offense 4 games into it and say that this is the peak that they're ever going to accomplish, is scoring 9 points against Florida State.
Good answer.
What's up, everybody? It's Heisman Trophy winner Matt Leinart. I've got a podcast called Throwbacks with actor Jerry Ferrar where we'll be talking all things sports, but also so much more. We'll give you the behind-the-scenes stories from my days as the quarterback on an iconic college football team to Jerry's days as a star on an iconic TV series. So subscribe to Throwbacks wherever you download your podcasts and follow us on all social media at Throwback Show.
The journey to a smoke-free future can be a long and winding road, but if you're ready for a change, consider taking Zyn for a spin. Zyn nicotine pouches offer a fresh way to discover your nicotine satisfaction. Anywhere, anytime. No smoke, no spit, and no lingering odor. Get in gear with the Zyn 10 Challenge and enjoy 10 smoke-free, spit-free days for just $5.95. Order online and start your new journey today. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
Moving on, next one. Our next question comes from Grumpy Bear.
Yes. Grumpy
What
Bear has
if-
been consistent with us.
Yes. What, if anything, can be done to get the Bears going early? We just seem to start slow every game. Number 2, the repeated penalties after the penalty fest against San Diego State just point to an undisciplined and poorly coached unit. Wilcox seemed pissed, but do you expect anything to change?
Good question.
Yeah. I mean, I can give a little bit of a take here, and then you can answer, because I know you're going to have some thoughts on this too. But do you expect anything to change? So this is one of those questions that's hard to discern. Like, what more can you do from a coaching perspective? If it's purely an execution issue, right? Like, if it's he's not like setting his body in the right angle, or hitting the right gap, that or making the right decision, like that. I think those are things that you can coach through and like watch tape, be with him on the field and do. But if it's like merely a procedural penalty, and that's why I think Wilcox gets so pissed about, is because there's nothing he can really do about it. Because if a guy flinches before a snap, I don't know what you're supposed to coach to eliminate the flinch to cause a what's this called? A false start penalty. So the procedural penalties that I will say is like Josiah Martin's, like, illegal shift and such. That's coachable, because you're like, you have to stop before you move again and on the snap. But like, some of the flinching stuff, it just comes down to raucous atmosphere, switching, like, and the switches between a silent count and a clap count, which Wilcox actually talked about in his postgame presser, by the way. And then like just inexperience. We have a lot of inexperience on this line, and like, like Nick Morrow is starting at left tackle, and this is his first season starting at left tackle, and this guy's transitioning from being a tight end from in high school. So like, we're gonna have to give them a little bit more slack on this. If this was all seniors on the offensive line, I'd say we need to make some changes. But it's an inexperienced group that has had different parts as well, change in and out. So once again, like Andy said in the previous answer, I think this is kind of a wait and see, as guys get more experience and know what to do in certain situations. But do you have any answer for the first part? If there's anything you can do to get the Bears going early? We just seem to start slow every game.
It's so funny to me. I think the Auburn game, we did get started early.
Yeah, a little bit.
And that's the only one that I can really point to and say, okay, that worked. I'm hoping that coming out of the bye week, that's going to be an opportunity for us to come out early. But at the end of the day, I'd rather look better in the second half than worry about how I look in the first.
Yep.
It's just, I want the adjustments to me. You come out and everything is scripted, and it's how you scouted your opponent and whether or not they can step up to that. And you're feeling it out, and then the adjustments you make will determine most of the time who's going to win that game. Because we're not getting blown out of games so far.
Nope.
So I wish I had an answer for it, because then I think Cal would be on its path to winning the national championship. But
You're right.
I don't. So I do wish I had a better answer there. And I totally agree, Rob. I think it's just a matter of time and we've talked about that before when it comes to the O-line.
All right, next question from Driscoll McDoza. What is Cal doing to spook kickers? This is twice in a row now that we have had a kicker who kills in practice but then chokes in games. Is it just an unfortunate coincidence or something in our process? I mean, we talked about it in the previous podcast. I don't think he's choking in games. He made you a 51-yarder to go ahead in the game. If I don't know how that's a choke. And the last kick, in the fourth quarter with 6 minutes to play, was blocked.
We gotta look at the way that the football is being kicked. That ball is like going to the top of the net, perfect form. There's just so much more here than the stuff that Luckers was dealing with. Like, as they talked about in Lasso, the yips. that type of stuff. It's just different. It's just different in how it looks. It's different in how it's being executed. The one thing I don't think we can discount is, are we haunted?
I don't know. Do we have a Curse of the Bambino with kickers? Is that what you're saying?
It's Halloween. It's spooky season. What spirit is haunting us? Is there a spirit that could be haunting us from special teams?
I don't know. It's only September. Do spirits start to haunt in September?
I
thought
think
that was
so.
an October thing.
Dude, if they're selling Christmas stuff at Costco, which they are, then I believe it's spooky season. There's pumpkins every time I go to a grocery store. It's spooky.
I've already bought pumpkins outside my door.
Well, there's the problem. See? Blame Rob.
I know. But to be fair, like, those pumpkins last a long time, and I want to get my money's worth of the pumpkins,
That's how I feel about my Christmas tree.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hope that answers the question. But if you didn't, you can go back and listen to our previous pod and we kind of talk about that for a while. All right, Andy, our dear friend Sid, she's back. Huge shout out the defense. I thought they did a phenomenal job, but please keep in mind, I only watched the first half. What's the key to beating Miami? I'm thinking the offense need to capitalize off our defense getting turnovers and a strong OL.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big themes for us is that we have all these takeaways, but we don't end up I think our points off of turnovers isn't that impressive.
I think our first points off of turnovers came this week. We had a field goal off the interception.
No.
Oh, no.
I think we have 21 points total.
I mean, I think total, but we had 0 last week
against
SDSU.
Yeah,
we had 0 points off turnovers.
I think it's 21 on 10 turnovers or 10 interceptions. It's something crazy. We have 10 interceptions and 21 points. That's a ton of extra possessions that are either empty or 3 points. And I don't think there's been that many field goals from our previous question. So the question becomes, Sid is a perfect point, and I think that's the key to success. It's not only just generating opportunities, but it's like you have to put those home. And I think with Miami, if you can come out early and get the student body engaged in a way that we really haven't been able to do, and get them loud and get belief into the stadium, which should be there at 3-1, but get belief into the stadium, then I think good things will happen.
Yeah. You need an early, you can't come out flat. I think you need an early touchdown. You need an early turnover, interception, fumble, whatever. And it just gets everyone up for the rest of the game.
Yeah. I'd love to see us be pretty aggressive, understand that we're the underdog in the game, even if it's at home, and really act like it.
Yeah. All right. Next one from Rich Lion Stan. Mendoza is surprisingly athletic. What can we do to make him a run threat to open up other areas of the offense?
How do we make him a run threat?
Yeah. What can we do to make him a run threat to open up other areas of the offense?
How extreme are we talking here? Because in previous podcasts, we talked about transplants on knees and things like that. Are we going to that degree?
Making him the bionic man?
Do we have MJ's special juice from
from Space Jam? I think, look, one of the things we didn't talk about in the previous pod looking at this game was Nando would run and he would slide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he would slide. He slid on all of them. He didn't try and get the extra yards by lowering his shoulder. He slid. So I think that alone has already started to open up him as a runner because he's saving his body and he's gaining yards. Now when we're running the read option with him, they're still worried about him to a certain degree. Now, I think once we get Jaden fully back and he takes off on a read option run for 25, 30 yards, that'll really make Mendoza a scarier weapon in the run game. Because they're going to have to start focusing on Jaden, which means it'll open up a running lane for Mendoza to pull and run, and so that's where it gets a little bit more as a threat on the offense.
I keep making Niners comparisons, and I realize it's probably getting annoying at this point, but I do think Mendoza is very similar to Purdy in that you would never design anything for Purdy from a design you except for short yardage situation. But that's how I feel. Like my big takeaway from some of these games is not that I feel like Fernando should run more, because I feel like for the most part that's coming from a result of a broken play or too much time.
Yeah. In the
I would
pocket. Yep.
love it if there was a world in which we saw Fernando have to run less, because his arm has outperformed my own expectations for where it would be at.
Yep.
And his decision making has outperformed expectations for where it would be at.
Great point. Great point. Next one from Anthony Baran. What are your key takeaways from the Florida State game, and what are we going to do? What are we going to need to do to beat Miami? Having the bye week will help with all the injuries we have. We kind of talked about it with Sid's question, right? In terms of how do we beat Miami, I think we got to come out strong and just hit the ground running. I think we got to control the ball, control time of possession with Jaden. And if Jaden can get us, if Jaden returns to his normal thing and gets like 150 yards and like 2 touchdowns in this game, I feel very confident we can come out on top. But if he's stifled stuffed, and we can't get him going beyond the line of scrimmage, and he has to juke past like 3 guys before he even reaches the line of scrimmage, it's going to be a long night for us.
We need to get Jaden back. Yeah. I want to answer the FSU question with like a bullet rapid fire
answer.
Go for it. What did we learn coming out of the FSU game? We can compete with anyone from an athletic perspective. We have to get right as far as health, clean up the penalties, AKA as a fan base, be patient. Yep. It's a long season. We're just a quarter into this thing.
Anything else? Nah. All right. We got 3 more, Andy. We're powering through this. Got one from N. Says, what are your thoughts on Mendoza taking so many sacks? Does this offense not have any hot reads? Is Mendoza having issues identifying where pressure is coming from? What can the offense and Mendoza do to punish aggressive defenses?
The first half, Mendoza was holding the ball too long.
Yeah.
And if you look at the second half, there was a harder time with pass protection. It's a careful balance. And you don't want him to throw the interception. You'd rather take the sack. A sack is a bad outcome, but it's not the worst outcome that you could have in that play. Aaron Rodgers is the example of why that is true. I don't know how concerned I am around. Well, I don't know if I would spend more time on pass protection or if I would try to work with Fernando on getting through his progression slightly faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Does this offense not have any hot reads? That's a good question. I don't know from a playbook standpoint if there is, but that's something to look into for sure. I'll ask around and see if I can get any answers for you on that one. Is Mendoza having issues identifying where pressure is coming from? No, I don't think so, because the way he takes out of the pocket when he feels pressure is pretty good. It might be like a half second delayed because he's like seeing if he can make a throw before he has to run. Like that's just the type of player he is. But no, I don't think it's just so, as Andy said, some of it was in the first half was just holding on to it for too long instead of just taking off a little bit earlier. And second was pass protection breaking down where he is expecting to have a lot more time than he got. And by a lot more time, it's like give him at least 2 seconds instead of getting sacked off the snap. What can offenses do to prevent to punch aggressive defenses? I mean, that's where you get the halfback screens, right? That's where you get the halfback screens and wide receiver screens. But that wasn't enough. That for me, that only works if they're blitzing. They need to send more guys so that the field opens up beyond the line of scrimmage. but a lot of the times they were getting pressure with 4 guys. They weren't really sending anyone else. And we were just once again, it comes back to our line. We were having communication issues. Guys weren't being handed off to the right guys, and guys were coming off the edge unblocked. And that's kind of what led to just our offensive line not performing up to par. Next one from the Jake Botel Sports Experience. 3-1 after first month. What's the pass mark look like for the next 4 games, in your opinion? Keep up the great work. What is the pass mark? What's the benchmark for next 4 games?
2-2.
2-2. So lose to Miami, lose to Pitt, and then beat Oregon State and beat NC State.
I think the only one you would look at and be a little bit confounded by would potentially be Oregon State. If we lost that one. Right?
Yeah.
NC State.
Sorry, I mixed that up. It's Miami, Pitt, NC State, then Oregon State. Not Oregon State, then NC State.
Okay. I mean, I think those are the Pitt, Miami. You could take those losses and say, okay. I think Pitt's going to be a close game. I call it a trap game. I still think it was a trap game. It's no longer a trap game because they're playing so well. But
who have they played? They played Youngstown.
Yeah,
I think this week and dropped 70 points on them.
But they have a good coach. I think that they 2-2. That's my pass. 5-3. If we're 5-3 after 8,
I mean,
and you're telling me,
dude, Pitt feels like us, and not just from a jersey standpoint. I'm just looking at their games, right? Like, they beat Kent State 55-24. The following week, they beat Cincinnati 28-27. The following week, they beat West Virginia 38-34. And then the week after, which was last week, they beat Youngstown State 73-17. This is eerily similar to like our games, right? Like, we beat Auburn by a single touchdown. We lost to Florida State by a single touchdown. But we blew San Diego State and we blew UC Davis. Like, but then they just ended up with the 4 wins, and we only ended up with 3.
Are you saying that your pass rate is 3-1? Then you're saying,
yeah, I am
6-2.
6-2 going into the last 4 games.
Bananas.
We'd be bowl eligible for at the earliest point in the season ever.
Give me that.
Give me that
timeline.
Give me that timeline. And that's exactly what I meant in the previous podcast. If that comes to fruition, that's when the Florida State game becomes a big what if.
No, I disagree. But we don't have time for that.
I know.
Next question.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, last one from DK. Actually, this is a friend. This is a friend of the pod. This is a friend of mine. He says, "What's your take on how we can better convert drives to points besides avoiding penalties and making makeable field goals? Even without the penalties that put us behind the chains, it felt like the offense would often stall in the red zone this last game."
We talked about spacing. I'm just going to highlight what we've already talked about in the previous podcast. We talked about spacing, and we talked about breaking out of a conservative mindset. And those are the 2. Anything you would add on that, Rob?
I'm interested to see what our offense looks like in the red zone when we get Jaden fully healthy. I wonder if the play call and what we do changes because of Jaden's ability.
Dude, like, you know what? I just thought of what we were saying. I love that. I think that's spot on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
But whatever happened to a nice, beautiful fade? The Jared Goff special. Because we have Mason Starling, we have Corey Dyches, we have the bodies to create that. Is that in our playbook?
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I've seen wide receivers run the fade. Like
the end zone fade.
Yeah,
remember how good Goff was at it? It was unbelievable.
Goff was unbelievable. Maybe it's there. Maybe it's just we just don't have the personnel yet. Maybe we're waiting for Merriweather to come back. Maybe we're waiting for Starling to come back. Maybe we just weren't in the areas of the field enough where we would have run that. Like maybe it's in the playbook for 10 yards and in, but we never
10 yards and in, yeah.
but
And
we
were
never
at the
got
11.
to
We were at the 11.
Well, we were at the 11 and
What if it was dialed up at the 11 and then we
got pulled
the
back? It could have
penalty?
been. It could have been, you know what I mean? Like it's all these routes, like, you know, having learned so much over the last couple of years, thank you, Coach Jesse. In terms of route patterns, it's like you have to look at depth and you have to look at where you're attacking. And if they felt, I don't think running a fade from 20 yards out or 25 yards out is going to get you enough of that separation because they're just going to catch up to you.
You can't, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it is a depth issue, like not from a player, but like depth of the field. Maybe that's where it happens. That's it, Andy. I'm checking the emails to see if we got anything, but we have not. By the way,
love an inbox of 0.
I know that's second to last question, right? That we got the Jake Botel sports experience. That's the Australia dude who sent us the email the week before.
Nice.
I just registered his name with the email inbox. Super
What do
cool.
we say? What's up, lads? What's up, lad?
Mate. It's mate, isn't it, mate? I think it's mate.
I don't know. We're
Special
embarrassing ourselves.
shout out to Jake Botel. If you go to Right for California and look at the Golden Bearcast like post that I post every time we put up an episode, there were a couple of comments on last week from some old Blues saying like, I just want to chime in, like these are some of my games that I would, you know, want you to watch to get the feel of a Cal fan. So I highly recommend going back to last week's, scroll through it and take a look at what some other Cal fans say in terms of the games to watch. That's a little special shout out to you, Jake. But yeah, that's it. Got anything else, Andy? We good? We're all out of golden tweets. We're all out of golden
tweets. Until next time.
Until next time, folks. As always, go Bears.
Go Bears. By the way, Rob.